This is the Leadership in Insurance podcast, brought to you by FinPro Search Partners.
Insurance companies are businesses and they need to look for the long term and be sustainable.
We went from 0 to 1 and now it's going from 1 to 100.
Insurance as a concept, as a kind of service, is brilliant. The execution is what we're looking at now.
I think the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to understand and master the art of intent.
When we talk about innovation, we lean too heavily to think about technology and we don't think about creating a culture of innovation.
I think innovation is essentially continuous improvement of existing processes and platforms and product.
Right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be seamless.
Good morning and welcome to the Leadership and Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bonds, and it's my privilege to have a slightly different guest on today, so I'm excited about it. Abbie from Insurance Insider. Abbie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. I'm really, really good. It's quite intimidating to have an actual proper journalist on. Um, when I've been shambolically trying to do some sort of reporting journalism on this podcast. So yeah, thank you for coming on, and I'm sure you can show me how it's done.
Thanks for having me. I mean, I don't do our podcast for Insurance Insider, so it would be, so I'm still new to it too.
Yeah, good. Right. So we're on neutral ground. That's good. So, well, look, I'm sure almost everyone listening knows who the Insurance Insider is, but some won't, and many will not have been aware of yourself. So, Abbie, if you could start by introducing yourself and obviously the Insurance Insider.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm a reporter for Insurance Insider. We're a B2B insurance publication. We've been going for 30 years now. It's our 30-year anniversary this year, which is really exciting. For me personally, I cover cyber. I cover a couple of other specialty lines, so things like construction, product recall, trade credit, a few others. And since AI started picking up, I kind of took over that as well. It's something I've been interested in for a really long time. And InsurTech comes with that, sort of data centers and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're a fully independent in our reporting, but we're very well connected with the market. We've had people say if it's in the Insider, you know it's true. So we are yeah, committed to bringing the best.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, Insider has always had that. I mean, I've been in the insurance industry for 20 years, and I think it was always, for us, it was always seen as the premier place to get reporting. There are other insurance news outlets. Don't trust it quite as much.
Blind
I think
biased.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying it because we're here. We're a bit agnostic because we sit to the sort of adjacent to the industry really because we focus on insurtech as a business. But when I was working in more traditional insurance search, it was go-to. It was homework reading you had to do. So look, great to have you on. I wanted to, a lot of this conversation is going to focus on AI. Obviously,
Yeah.
we've talked about, but you've been tracking AI since your master's, I think, in 2018. I think we talked about. So just wanted to
Yeah.
kind of understand what drew you to it then, and then let's maybe talk about the industry's attitude, how it's changed over that time that you've been working in the insurance industry.
Sure. So it's actually not in insurance. I've been tracking it since 2018. I have a master's degree in book publishing, so a very different kind of angle, I guess. I think what's exciting and probably the biggest difference now is that people are actually willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
The dissertation was on editorial response to AI, and I remember calling people and saying, "Can I just want your opinion. You don't need to know anything about AI. I just want you to tell me what you think."
Mm.
And they would be like, "No, I'm not going to talk about it. It's not real. It's not going to happen for 20 odd years. Why do you care?" It was really hard. And now everybody's talking about it. So that's really exciting. And I think what drew me in is the kind of, at the time, it had this huge potential. I remember hearing what it could do for books and being like, this is it. This is amazing. Um, and I still feel like that excitement's there. I feel like I was just a bit early. And hearing what it can do for the insurance industry and this kind of new excitement that people seem to have. And I find that with AI, a lot of the conversation throws up what's really important about the industry and what the industry really values. it's really hard to talk about AI with anybody in insurance without people being the central focus, how it's going to make people's lives better or potential for changing the workforce and things like that. And it shows how important people are to this industry, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think you raise a really important point now. I mean, a lot of the conversations I have about AI, I mean, obviously I'm focused on people. That's my role. That's what search firm does. But I think the conversation does sit on people, and it's what I like about the adoption that I'm seeing is that people are part of the consideration. You know, the human in the loop. What human? What's it going to do for them? How does it assist them?
Mm.
We still, and also probably with insurance, there's always this sentiment of we still want it to be a person-to-person business. And
Yeah.
I think that's where the risk slash cultural concern really focuses, which I think is actually quite endearing about the industry. Does that resonate with you? Is that that kind of concern about if we lose that, we've lost our soul a little bit on the insurance side?
Um, yeah, I guess so. I think it makes me think we did a huge kind of six-part series over the summer on AI, and the idea of it was to be like, if you don't know anything about AI, you can read this series and at least go into a meeting with something, right? You
Yeah,
from
yeah,
claims, broking, underwriting.
mhm,
And because I kept hearing about people and how important they are, and like you say, not just person in the loop, but who's creating the loop, who is training that human, and
mhm,
something that a lot of sources kind of said was this can get brokers, underwriters, people in the industry back out into coffee shops. And I
yeah,
really liked that idea of this technology can unlock the industry that we begun with,
mm,
people chatting in
mhm,
coffee shops and
mhm,
relationship based and you know, building almost rebuilding the industry in its initial image.
yeah,
People spoke
yeah.
with quite a lot of passion about that, which was really nice.
This echoes actually what where AI is going in my industry as well. Because if you think about, because we work in the insurance industry, when you look at a search firm, you quite often draw a parallel with the broking industry because we're a middle part. You know, we're connecting the
Mm,
right talent with the right businesses, and actually all the AI is kind of removing, making us sat on LinkedIn or on a phone or a Zoom call and actually going out and meeting people and building relationships and actually getting back to that. So I think that's really appealing about the insurance industry.
are you seeing that
Um,
change already?
yeah, yes. I mean, but it's got the same kind of kickbacks of any industry. The problem is, generally speaking, the phrase marketers ruin everything. Well, and I think that's the problem is that we're getting these tools, and at the moment, most of it's about outreach and identifying talent but then it's being they're taking that and running with it and turning up to 1,000 and so basically everyone's getting inundated with information and approaches that are clearly automated and then people turn off from that place. So if marketers ruined email, I think marketers are about to completely ruin things like LinkedIn, and then you go, okay, where do we now go, because no one wants to pick up the phone anymore, so you're kind of like there's a risk with all of these things that there's overuse, but the identification of talent is become better. So,
Hmm.
we've got tools that we can go. We want an insurtech VP of sales that's worked in a very early stage seed or Series A business. But you can find those people now without having to
Sure.
know that information. Um, but the magic is in the middle where the humans get involved, and yeah, we are seeing that. And I think in insurance we're seeing the same thing. But
Yeah.
um, as you're driving into that, where are you seeing AI being used like kind of most maybe comprehensively across the industry? If there was an industry-wide trend, is it in claims? Is it underwriting? Yeah, well,
I think it's claims underwriting and broking are all using it, or at
yeah,
least experimenting in it, but in
mhm,
their own, each section has its own kind of driving use case, I guess. So for
yes,
claims, you're really looking at claims tracking. I
uh-huh,
think I assumed when I started speaking to people that it would be like a claims bot, like can you
hmm
go online and you chat to an AI. It actually
hmm
turns out it's a lot more like uh, that, but for the claims agent.
yeah,
So if you think they have all of these people, all of these claims that they're tracking, if an AI agent is able to go through and kind of flag things for them and find information much faster and complete these processes for them, they are immediately able to do their job and provide better kind of customer service because that part's done. Um, we got an example of like a nat cat situation. There's been a huge hurricane. If you've got hundreds of cases, hundreds of claims to look over, it's really useful to have an AI agent who's able to help pick up those cases and make sure that everybody is helped in the way they need to be. For underwriting, it's a bit different. It's a lot more about speed, efficiency, data extraction. Um, that's probably what people bring up the most in terms of getting data quickly. I think it was Moody's said that um, there is AI now that can make a process for a kind of typical line take 25 minutes as opposed to 48 hours. So they're really looking at that drive and efficiency, which kind of does throw up the question, like you were saying, when you've got that time available, now what do you do with it? And a lot of people have told me that's for making better underwriting decisions and evolutionizing the product for what people really need and kind of going back to what underwriting really is. Brokers, however, are using it kind of the efficiency play is secondary to brokers. It's definitely more about kind of getting the data. Um, Data capture is what they're after. You know, we've been told that efficiency is good, but it's not the primary. Really, it's about making them better brokers, and the best way they do that is with the data that's available to them. So, yeah, I think that's where we're seeing it across the board. I'm sure there's loads more. I'm sure people are
So
using it in loads of different ways.
yeah, I mean, there's so many ways it's being adopted and used, and I think it's interesting to look kind of there's general themes and trends, but all of those examples kind of bleed into what we were saying. It's still putting that kind of relationship with thing first. Because it's something I talked about this a few times, but I remember when the technology advancement came in the home. So post World War One, post World War Two, probably more exactly. We saw this huge development in like home technology, in the kitchen, microwaves, dishwashers, etc. And there was always this kind of conversation about, oh, people will just work less, and like technology in their work, people will work less, and the idea that we
Mm,
might do a 3-day week. And like, I think about that from an ethos perspective. It's like, why does it all have to be about driving growth for the sake of growth,
mm.
um, rather than we have a as profitable business or more profitable business, and our employees just have a better time working here. Like,
Yeah,
and I think about that. I think about that even in the context of I think about Beasley. Beasley have always done this, and this is me, yeah, pointing out they've always done this thing about when you're traveling, we'll pay for travel because if you're traveling to work, you're doing that for us. Subsidized food, all the kind of benefits package around that was about the acceptance that we want you to love working here. And I can tell you as a
mm,
headhunter, it was always bloody hard to get people to leave, and it really, really was. And I
yeah.
think this is another way of looking at that technology, saying, wouldn't it be great if our people just love working here because their lives are made easier and then they could do higher value, more interesting tasks like sitting coffee shops and
Yeah.
meet
And I
people.
think as well, it makes me think of something someone said to me when I was doing the masters, which has stuck with me. And I feel like it's just in my head in every conversation I have about AI, is that
Mm,
if you look at the Industrial Revolution, we
mm,
changed as a society from what we could do physically to what we could do mentally. That was the shift we were undergoing. Now we're doing that shift again, but it's from what we can do mentally to what we can do socially
yeah.
and emotionally. And it makes me think, yeah, 100% I agree. You know, how can we make working here great, but how can we make life and the way we socialize and other people who aren't at the company's life better? How can we just
Mm,
improve generally, I think
mm.
is a an optimistic viewpoint, but
No,
I think
no,
it's
but I'm with
definitely
you. But you're seeing that. You're seeing that outside of insurance. And I don't want to take this too far away from insurance, but we're seeing like the rise in like events companies and yeah, there's a dating platform called Thursday, and their whole thing is it's an app to arrange in-person meets. That's all it is.
yeah.
So they run like nights internationally, and it's kind of almost like a reaction to like take everything online and go, well, what do we actually like about being human beings? Is actually being in the company of other human beings.
Mm,
I'm quite anti like this whole obsession with remote working. It's like it might work for you, but there isn't a one size fits all. Like it's like lots of people, me included, like to be in the office with people. And if you take that away and mandate it, I think you've got quite a lot of miserable, lonely people. Like just going, oh yeah, we work remotely at home, so I can do my washing when I want. Great. I'd rather have to do my washing at mandated times because I was with a load of people that I want to be with. So,
Mm.
yeah, but it's the sort of extremes of both these things.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to what you're seeing from like the insurance industry. Obviously, there's different routes to kind of initiating AI into the industry. Are you seeing kind of like what are you seeing from the build by partner kind of conundrum?
Yeah, it's really interesting because people, at least companies now have figured out that an investment is likely going to happen for AI
Yeah,
and it's worth it.
yeah,
Because if
yeah.
you don't, you get the problem of shadow IT, where you've got your staff generally using Copilot or ChatGPT or something kind of without support from the company on their own, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a whole world of problems. So I
Mm-hmm.
think you know a lot of companies have clocked that this is something they need to be thinking about at least.
Yeah.
Um, Lots of people have told me that I've asked people that question, and it depends is the kind of standard answer.
Yeah, of course.
And what I've kind of hearing from people is that it really depends on what your value proposition is as a company. If you see yourself as like a tech-centric, modern kind of I don't want to say problem solving, but if that's your if tech is something that's kind of embedded in your value proposition, then yeah, it
Mm,
makes probably quite a lot of sense for you to build something in-house. If you are kind of a stalwart old we do insurance first, then it may work best for you to kind of go outside and get outside help.
yeah,
Um, and I think there is the question, and people have discussed this. Where do you stop being an insurance company and start being a tech company? Like it's really
yeah,
easy to say, as this big tech company, sorry, as this big insurance company, we have this
mm,
much investment that's going to make AI do this,
mm-hmm,
and it's almost going into like tech. You're becoming a tech company that does insurance on the side.
mm-hmm.
And I think I'm seeing a lot of conversation with people where they're saying, actually, we need to do AI for insurance, not AI as the company with insurance
Yeah,
added.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's been something we've kicked around. I mean, we've been doing this podcast now for oh God, 5 years, I think. And it was all like, why would you build? Building was demonized for a long time. And it was like you had to buy or partner. But I am now seeing people go, other businesses, really good businesses, really dynamic businesses go, but if we build this technology ourselves and we do it well, then it's our USP.
Yeah.
So it gives us that advantage. Otherwise, if you're buying off the shelf only, then really your only USP is your pricing model or your risk selection. And it's like, that's tricky.
Yeah. Although I will say one of my favorite quotes that I had in the AI series that we did was
Mm.
I was told that code is for life, not just for Christmas.
Code is
In
life.
that you can I
Yeah.
really love that one. You can build this kind of in-house technology, but actually
Mm.
sometimes the investment isn't just building it, it's maintaining it and making sure that it can work and change and be useful down the line.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there's a strong case for kind of a bit of both, and that's what we're seeing a lot. People kind of say we're doing a bit of both, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and it depends on the size of the company and
Mhm.
value proposition and what works, I guess. I think there's experimenting and seeing this is also
Mm.
new. So
Yeah, I agree, and as particularly with AI, it's pick areas where you can make it work for your business, and
mm,
a lot of those will be like point solutions that are solving specific issues. But yeah, code is life. I like that a lot. I mean, we're already seeing that with some of the much more mature insurtechs or the digital insurers. They've already got legacy debt, like they've already got tech
mm,
legacy problems, and so it doesn't matter who you are, you will have legacy problems. So it could be brilliant for a period of time, but it's the ability to
yeah.
change from that. What are the sort of biggest concerns that you're seeing with this? Is it regulation, ethics? job displacement, bit of everything. Because those are the things that I tend to.
Yeah, you've hit on a lot of them. I think it depends on who you talk to. I think if you're talking to the people implementing the AI, we hear a lot about kind of not so much concern, but a real um, it's emphasized that AI is being introduced with a framework, with a sort of an eye to doing it ethically. And,
Mhm.
I've heard people talk about the concern of, I think I might be getting this wrong, but I think it's ethical debt. The idea that
Mm.
you might build something now and then in 10 years' time, a law might be put in that allows you to be retroactively kind of pulled up on something you did 10 years ago with AI.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have told me that the antidote to that is just doing it right now, if you can. So that is
Mm.
something that I think it's a concern, but it's a concern that's being taken seriously and looked at from the start. If
Yeah.
you go from the kind of people using it on the day-to-day staff, I think you can't go to a conference, you can't chat to somebody in Leadenhall or anything without and mention AI without being like, am I going to lose my job? I think that's a real concern for people. Um, I think from that perspective, I think it's inevitable that the workforce is going to change. Um, I don't think jobs are on the line right now. They might not be in the future. Obviously, we can't look into a crystal ball and figure it out. But we've had kind of CEOs say it's going to be dealt with by the fact that people are leaving, people are retiring. So the work pool will get smaller, but an AI can fill in those gaps down the line with kind of strategic workforce planning. Um, I think for me, I think it's quite an interesting question of how do we manage kind of new starters, things like graduate schemes, are they going to get smaller? How do we train staff to use AI? One thing that people talk about is kind of having AI do processes and making sure that the staff knows the processes well enough to to ensure the AI is doing it properly. For now, when AI comes in, the staff will already know those processes very well. But when you get new staff, they'll have to learn alongside the I suppose. So that's quite an interesting nuance. And I think one thing we're talking about with people a lot about is kind of the change in, it's not hard change, but people are starting to look for slightly different skills when they're hiring, particularly kind of new entrants into the market. And I'm hearing people talk about soft skills a lot. So communication skills, emotional intelligence, creativity, these sort of things that perhaps an AI can't give yet. Um, and looking for people who, one thing that's mentioned in the series is this kind of cross-domain thinking. AI is really good at kind of coming up with what's the answer to a question based on data, but people who can apply that across the company and make those connections and think laterally seem to be what companies are really, or insurance brokers are really looking for at the minute.
Yeah, that was a big part of I did a talk late last year for Altamont Capital about AI talent and it was two-sided. It was using AI to find talent, but then it was actually predominantly around what leadership and what talent they need in this world that we're working in now, where AI is going to form part of our workforce and part of our solution. And creative leadership was this big theme that I kept coming across, and it was across all industries. And essentially, it was like looking at leadership being changing what the art of the possible is. So looking
Mm.
at right, AI is this opportunity to augment our workforce, but it's also change our workflow, change our processes. Like there's so many possibilities that are opened up. So what's really going to be in demand? And that's as a business, that's
Mm.
realistically what we look at is senior roles within the insurtech market.
Yeah.
What the requirement was for leaders that have creative skill sets, and that was things like better EQ,
Yeah.
that was creativity. And so these leaders are very different from the leaders that we probably have in insurance right now,
Mm.
and probably will need to be different in the future. Um,
If you
the
don't
thing
mind me
that I,
throwing a question out,
yeah,
are
yeah,
people on the other end, is there demand for companies that are using AI, talking about AI, or is that not really
Is
something people
there?
are thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on that because there's part of it to say that if you weren't embracing this evolving technology, the best and the brightest people, particularly on the earlier stage of their career, won't want to work for you. Like you will be seen as behind the curve, and that's a problem. Um, but I don't know. I mean, as someone that started in the insurance industry straight from university and did like first notification of loss in claims and that how you learn the nuts and bolts of it. I do think people are blindly pretending like nothing needs to change. And I think the thing that needs to change is training needs to change and evolve. How training's conducted, how it works. It's great to say, oh, it's fine because the AI will kind of do these entry level things. Okay, well then how do we train someone to be not entry level? How do we train
Mm,
someone to add value in that ecosystem when they won't have this kind of grounding within the kind of nuts and bolts of insurance? And
yeah.
that's a challenge that I don't think I see that being a double part of the investment. You're going to invest in you're going to invest in the AI to tech stack, but then you've almost got to match that with an investment of what are we going to do with our new early stage people. I'm
Yeah.
not seeing that money put aside, and I'm not seeing it deployed. So that kind of worries me,
And I'm hearing
really.
as well that kind of to mirror that, some concern about training the people who are already in these senior management positions to manage AI. Like if it's
Yeah,
doing this entry level role, there's still something to manage there with
yeah, yeah,
humans
yeah,
alongside it. Like there's
yeah.
with a whole new way of working, people have really been, I mean, hearteningly, people have been talking a lot about how do we get our staff
Mm,
involved. They're the ones using it at the end of the day. So you can make all this investment, but if your staff don't like it,
yeah,
it
yeah.
might be a bit of a wasted investment.
Yeah, I mean the cultural thing of getting people on side is going to be really different, and I think the problem with AI, not problem, but the challenge probably is that it could so fundamentally change the way that a business operates. It will have an impact on culture, and you essentially could find that you've got leaders that are not capable of leading in this new landscape because they don't have the skills. Um, I mean, insurance probably does that quite badly anyway, but that's a broader issue. Is that you're the best underwriter, then you become some senior underwriting figure. You're the best broker, you become some senior leadership figure in broking. And I can speak from experience. I might be the best recruiter in our business. I don't know if I'm the best leader in our business. And that's it's that's in any industry. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge, I think, particularly in that management layer and particularly in that kind of middle management layer, because what part of the research I did for this talk was to say that actually it's all very well at the top level going, we're going to embrace AI, but your middle management are where you execute and actually embed culture and process. And if you can't get those people on board, then any initiatives are not going to fly. So yeah, interesting. I know we haven't got a crystal ball, we've mentioned that, but I did want to talk about the future.
Mm.
Obviously this is where we're speculating, but based on your reporting and the experts who spoke to you, where do you think we go next in the next like 12 to 24 months? What
That's
stories are
a
you
hard
eager
one.
to tell?
Do you know what? After the series, this has kind of been what I'm chatting to people about, like kind of what's next.
Yeah.
Last year, we went from hearing a lot about kind of LLMs to the phrase like agentic AI came up, and
Mm-hmm.
part of me is kind of waiting to hear what the next insert something AI is going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the tech understanding to know whether that's coming or what's next. But what I think is most interesting from talking to people is that it feels like we've shifted from just kind of knowledge gathering and,
Yeah.
what is this technology? What can it do? Into investing, starting to implement, starting to get, like you said, staff on board. And what's really exciting about that is hearing people say, actually, I think AI could really help me with this thing. And now people are starting to understand it and how it's implemented. You hear people's own creative kind of solutions that it can provide, which I think is exciting. Um, So I think, and on top of that, getting feedback. Like we're hearing people saying that they've got quite a lot of use cases that are being tested in small groups. We hear a lot of people with like Claude or like a version of Copilot, um, uh, being used. And we're hearing great stuff. We're hearing that people are really excited about it. So I think that's something that I suppose that's the thing that I'm kind of looking at long term now is not just a top down or kind of executive look at what can AI do for the business. I'm really interested in, is it really changing how we work? Is it getting people back into coffee shops? Do they like it? Is
Yeah.
it, you know, is it well, I'm using it because my manager just told me? And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have enough input from people yet to answer that, but
Yeah.
um, I'm intrigued to know how people are responding now it's coming in.
Mm. Yeah, I think on that, the sort of democratization of AI tools
Mm.
is interesting. So, I've just literally had a new starter this week with me, and he's already looking at what we're doing. Go, can't we train Claude to pull all that for us? And it's
Yeah,
like, yeah. And I said, well, go on then. And I was like,
yeah.
you're smart. You've got a license, and actually, interestingly, he's got similar. He was looking at AI in 2020 where he did a music business degree. And his
Oh,
lecturer
cool.
was talking about how AI and blockchain was going to change the music industry. And then, it completely very similar publishing. My best friend works in publishing, book publishing, and he runs all of his reporting on Amazon and the Amazon
Mm.
pushes the Amazon account using a tool built with Claude now, which is his unique
Yeah,
um, a proprietary tool. So it's fascinating what you can build now on a kind of individual level. Now we've got regulation problems there and potentially, and there's
yeah,
kind of risks there, but it's an interesting world where there's a democratization of that skill set, and it's like most of the great ideas in businesses come from the people using them, and AI just is giving a generation of people the opportunity to kind of go from ground up in terms of
yeah,
ideas. So that's what I'm excited about.
yeah.
Which we go. Um, Abbie, we're at time. I knew we'd have a really interesting
Oh
conversation.
no.
I could have you on for a six-part series, and maybe we'll have to do this again. But I always like to let the guest have the last word. So anything we didn't cover in AI, anything you want to direct them to, because definitely they should check out that six-part series. Where can they access that?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do if you're interested in AI or you feel like you would like a bit more information on where it's being used in any of the topics we've talked about, probably the best place to look is the AI series that we did on Insurance Insider. Um, and yeah, I think it's new, but it is generally exciting.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of industry optimism, which I think is a good thing to take away from it.
yeah, I agree. Abbie, thank you so much for being a guest on the Leadership and Insurance podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Thank you.